Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the regular meeting of shareholders of Humanetics Corporation. My name is Ronald Zenk. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Humanetics and a Director of the company. This afternoon, we will accomplish several things. First, we will have the formal shareholder meeting to elect 7 directors, approve the retention of our auditors, and expand the number of authorized shares of common and preferred stock of the company. After conclusion of the formal meeting, I will give you an informal update on our business. We will then have a period of time for questions and answers. So now to get started. The regular meeting of shareholders of Humanetics Corporation is hereby called to order. The tabulation of proxies for this meeting has been supervised by our independent auditors, Baker Tilly US, LLP. If you have not already submitted a proxy, or if you would like to change your vote from your original submission, please re-click the link in your meeting invitation, and that will open a second window with the option to choose Vote shown on your screen. Voting will be allowed until the end of the formal portion of this meeting. Please note that if you have already submitted your proxy, you do not have to vote again at this time. In order to begin this meeting, we must have a quorum. On or about August 10th, 2022, a notice of meetings of shareholders, a proxy statement, and a form of proxy were mailed to each shareholder of record as of August 5th, 2022, the record date for this meeting. Each holder of common stock of record on that date is entitled to 1 vote for each share held in his, her, or its name. On the record date, the company had issued and outstanding 12,628,139 shares of common stock. No preferred shares of stock are issued and outstanding. There are present, in person or by proxy, shareholders holding a total of at least 9,600,000 common shares, which is over 75% of the total number of common shares outstanding, and so a quorum is present. Since a quorum is present, we will proceed with the matters to be voted on. There were 3 proposals for you to vote on. If you would like to submit a proposal on any other matter, please submit it in text format by using the Q&A function displayed on your screen. The first proposal, 7 persons were proposed for election as directors to serve for 1 to 3-year terms ending in 2023, 2024, and 2025. Written motions have been made and seconded by shareholders at this meeting to elect Ronald Zenk, Admiral Matt Nathan, and Timothy Morris as Class A directors, John Dykstra and Jake Nunn as Class B directors, and Dr. Karen Smith and Thomas Jasper as Class C directors to serve for 1 to 3-year terms ending in 2023, 2024, and 2025, respectively, as described in the proxy statement. The second proposal, in this next order of business, is the ratification of the appointment of the firm of Baker Tilly US, LLP, as the corporation's independent auditors for the year ending September 30, 2022. Written motions have been made and seconded by shareholders at this meeting to appoint Baker Tilly US, LLP as the corporation's independent auditors for the year ending September 30, 2022. The last order of business is to amend the articles of incorporation of the company to increase the number of shares of capital stock which the company is authorized to issue to 54 million shares, consisting of 48 million shares of common stock, no par value, and 6 million shares of preferred stock. Written motions have been made and seconded by shareholders at this meeting to amend the articles of incorporation of the company to increase the number of shares of capital stock which the company is authorized to issue to 54 million shares, consisting of 48 million shares of common stock, no par value, and 6 million shares of preferred stock. There were no other proposals submitted for consideration at this meeting. Since there is no other business for the formal meeting, I will close the voting and report on the results. Results of the proxy tabulation supervised by Baker Tilly are as follows. On the first motion, dealing with the election of 7 directors, all nominees were elected for 1 to 3-year terms ending in 2023, 2024, and 2025 as described in the proxy statement. by the affirmative vote of a majority of the shares, over 80%, present in person or by proxy at this meeting. On the second motion, dealing with the ratification of the appointment of Baker Tilly US LLP, a majority of the shares, over 80%, present in person or by proxy at this meeting, were voted in favor. On the third motion, dealing with the amendment of the Articles of Incorporation of the company to increase the number of authorized shares the company is authorized to issue, a majority of the shares, over 80%, present in person or by proxy at this meeting, were voted in favor. All three motions passed. In addition, if any new business had been proposed, a majority of the shares, over 70%, present in person or by proxy at this meeting, voted for management to use their discretion in voting upon any other business that may properly come before this meeting or any adjournment thereof. As noted earlier, no new business was proposed. And since this concludes the formal portion of the meeting, we will now move to an update on the company. So at Humanetics, we are developing a new self-administered drug to prevent and mitigate damage to human tissues and organs caused by radiation and inflammatory disease. We are addressing three major health issues: proliferation of nuclear threats, damage caused by cancer radiation therapy, and long-term damage from COVID. Our markets include biodefense, warfighters on battlefields, first responders worldwide, cancer radiation therapy, using radiation to treat non-small cell lung cancer, head and neck cancer, prostate cancer. Again, Bio300 is simply added to the cancer radiation therapy standard of care, and long COVID. The first market is radiation exposure on the battlefield. The war in Ukraine has unleashed a new frontier of nuclear terrorism. People are now being evacuated from areas near nuclear power facilities in Ukraine for fear of radiation leaks. All of Europe is now concerned over reckless abandon regarding controls and safeguards around nuclear power plants. The second indication is cancer radiation therapy, which also damages healthy tissues and organs. Radiation therapy is used in non-small cell lung cancer, head and neck cancer, and prostate cancer to destroy the solid tumor. However, side effects can get so bad, patients stop radiation, and the tumor can continue to grow. The third is long COVID, associated with long-haul COVID patients. COVID mimics radiation toxicities in the lung, resulting in inflammation, pneumonitis, and pulmonary fibrosis. We are currently enrolling a Phase 2b clinical trial fully funded by NIAID, or National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Current sites nationwide include New York University, UT Health Houston, and Houston Methodist Research Institute. So the solution for us is Bio300 as a shelf-stable, self-administered oral drug to prevent radiation damage. Radiation causes DNA damage and triggers cytokines which increase inflammation and fibrosis. Bio300 prevents these damaging effects. Before we go deeper into Bio300, I wanted to give you a brief history of the company. As many of you recall, 7-Keto was our first commercial product. It was developed by Dr. Henry Lardy at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. At the time, DHA was believed to have beneficial effects on immune function and weight loss, but it also increased hormone levels. We funded testing of 50-plus derivatives of DHA that were more potent but did not have the adverse side effects of DHEA. 7-Keto DHEA became our target compound. 7-Keto was originally intended to be developed as a drug for immune-compromised patients, but it was later discovered that it was grandfathered in under the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, or DSHEA, as a dietary ingredient. General Nutrition Corporation, GNC, jumped on board and helped launch the product in their stores as an immune supplement. Immune enhancement is hard to measure, but they did notice that people were losing weight. 2 clinical trials were conducted, and 7-keto-DHEA became a new weight loss dietary ingredient. Dr. Oz catapulted commercial sales until he lost credibility, and then sales started to fall and our patents were nearing the end of their useful life. We then sold the business to a private equity firm before that happened. Proceeds from that sale were not sufficient to provide a meaningful dividend to shareholders, and so we pivoted and invested the proceeds into Bio300, which has a significantly larger valuation upside. Bio300 was invented by researchers at the Department of Defense in Bethesda. We obtained a worldwide exclusive license to their technology. Later, the National Cancer Institute realized there was an application for cancer radiation therapy as well, and so Bio300 has evolved into a shelf-stable, self-administered oral drug for soldiers on the battlefield and for cancer patients before they receive cancer radiation therapy. To date, we have received over $45 million in non-dilutive funding from multiple federal agencies to develop Bio300. These agencies include the Department of Defense, the National Cancer Institute, and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Fauci's group. We've also received some of the best due diligence in the world as part of this federal grant and contract award process. Each time we've been granted a new contract, we have to be reviewed by expert medical and scientific panels. We have done that now 18 times. And so, as I mentioned, this is some of the best due diligence we have for our product. Clinical stage means we are testing in humans. We have conducted phase 1 safety and phase 2 efficacy trials, and all are available online at clinicaltrials.gov. A majority of our research is also published in peer-reviewed journals. We'd be happy to share any of those with you upon request. We have over 30 patents issued worldwide, covering methods of use, formulation, and manufacturing. Many branched off the original Department of Defense lethal exposure patent that they had created. In addition to patents, we have received orphan drug designation from the FDA and fast track approval. Orphan drug designation is only granted for drugs to treat rare conditions and provides 7 years of market exclusivity upon FDA approval. Fast track approval is a process to expedite review of drugs for unmet medical needs and allows for more frequent FDA communications and a rolling review of the drug application sections instead of waiting to submit only after all clinical and other required studies are complete. There are 2 near-term commercial revenue opportunities for Bio300 as a medical countermeasure. The first is called an IND contingency use protocol, which is similar to a waiver to participate in a clinical trial. For example, special ops soldiers could sign the waiver and then receive the drug before going into a potential hazardous area. There is also emergency use authorization, very similar to COVID, where the DoD could work with FDA and say they'd like to purchase the product under emergency use authorization to distribute to the military and the first responders. Another benefit of developing a drug to treat rare conditions is called a priority review voucher. In 2016, Congress passed the 21st Century Cures Act, which was intended to provide incentives for private companies like Humanetics to develop medical countermeasures against terrorist attacks. Other than the federal government, there are a few customers and a limited market for medical countermeasures, and so private companies needed an incentive to devote time, money, and resources to develop such products. A key provision of the Act was to direct the FDA to award the priority review voucher to companies upon approval of a medical countermeasure. There is no cost to the government to issue a priority review voucher, yet it provides tremendous financial benefits to the holder. The priority review voucher provides for expedited FDA approval of new drugs in 6 months instead of 10, which provides a big market advantage to holders. The priority review voucher is fully transferable to any other company, and so it has a very high secondary market value. 2 current examples from this summer are shown here. Novartis paid $100 million and Novo Nordisk paid $110 million. So our go-to market strategy for medical countermeasures is to pursue countermeasure sales through IND contingency use or emergency use authorization. We also want to complete FDA regulatory approval and potentially receive a priority review voucher upon receiving that FDA approval. Our plan is to sell directly to U.S. and foreign governments and first responders, police and fire worldwide. In terms of cancer radiation therapy, our goal is to conduct a phase 2b clinical trial in non-small cell lung cancer and to collaborate with Big Pharma once we have those results to conduct late-stage clinical trials, pursue FDA approval, and commercialization. Our management team, that you know many of us, have a tremendous level of experience in public finance, management, operations, and R&D. We have assembled a very strong and diverse, talented team. And the shareholders just elected a remarkable board, including the 37th Surgeon General of the Navy, who serves as our chairman, notably separating outside board leadership from internal management leadership. We have a pharma executive clinician with over 100 trials and 20 regulatory approvals in her experience. Venture capitalist Jake Nunn, specializing in growth and liquidity for clinical stage companies just like Humanetics, and 2 financial executives with tremendous public company experience. All directors have highly relevant public company and industry experience with current professional networks. A more detailed description of each is contained in the proxy material. In addition, we have an equally impressive advisory board, including the former Surgeon General of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the former Department of Defense officer responsible for material acquisitions and stockpiles, and the Chief Medical Officer of the Department of Radiation Oncology at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. We have also engaged a group called Ducera Partners out of New York City as our financial advisor to help us prepare for and assist with equity offerings and any exit strategy we pursue. So in terms of traction, we are currently in advanced stages of clinical testing for both medical countermeasures and cancer radiation therapy. We have a fully funded long COVID clinical trial underway. We have received over $45 million in non-dilutive federal funding with extensive vetting under each grant by professional medical review panels. We have several near-term commercial revenue opportunities and the potential to receive a priority review voucher upon approval, FDA approval of our medical countermeasures. And lastly, we have received orphan drug designation and fast-track development approval for Bio300 as a medical countermeasure from the FDA. In the next 12 months, we expect to continue to seek funding for FDA approval of Bio300 as a medical countermeasure, and that would include federal grants and contracts, working with our congressional delegation on the defense budget support, and potential royalty funding secured by the possible priority review voucher and DoD stockpile sales. We intend to accelerate development and testing of Bio300 as a medical countermeasure and to seek acquisition contracts for U.S. military, NATO, and the United Nations. We hope to conduct a private equity round to fund our phase 2b non-small cell lung cancer clinical trial and to complete the data readout on our long COVID clinical trial. That concludes our informal presentation, and we'll now be opening up for questions and answers. Thank you for your attention.